I want to talk about Pixar, my all-time favorite movie studio. Ever since they joined Walt Disney, they have been making fantastic movies about every year. This summer, the big movie is Brave. All depending on where you live and when you see this video, the movie is on its way or already playing in the cinema. It's already out in the US, but for me living in Norway, I have to wait till August 31st to see it. Pixar has also made a ton of genius short films, but today I'll give my opinion on the feature films. Yes, all 12 of them. The first release in 1995 was a really big one, Toy Story. Of course, I can say this is a fantastic movie, but you'll get tired of me saying that 12 times, so let's just say that's the basic thing I don't need to repeat for every one of these great movies. For the two of you who haven't seen the movie, it's an alternative reality. What if toys were alive? There is this kid named Andy who loves this one toy named Woody. No, not that Woody. On his birthday he gets a far superior toy named Buzz who becomes the kid's new favorite toy, and Woody gets jelly. That's the basic plot. Buzz thinks he is an actual spaceman and not a toy, so a lot of the jokes are based around that. When this movie was new, I don't think I ever sat through the whole thing, but wherever I went, there were always people playing this movie on the screen. This movie spawned an entire trilogy that I will talk about as we progress. The next movie, A Bug's Life, was rather small in comparison, and not nearly as successful. This one is all about ants. They collect stuff, they build stuff, and they have to defeat the evil grasshoppers. It's a fun movie, but I would put it rather low on the list. It's not my biggest recommendation considering the rest of the Pixar's work is far better. But the tears turned into cheers with the third movie they made, Toy Story 2. This was their first sequel, and Pixar is mostly known for making new IPs, but they pulled off this sequel really well. While the first movie only took place in the neighborhood, this one expands on it by taking you to places like a toy shop, an airport, and of course Mike Mozart's headquarters. The plot is that this crazy toy collector steals Woody, and the rest of the toys have to save him. This dude reminds me so much of Mike Mozart. Also, I made a parody of him once. What he actually does is making videos about failed toys, and they are hilarious. Do you think it's a coincidence that they are so much the same? I feel Toy Story 2 was the last of the classic Pixar movies before they went into the 21st century, where the first movie in the modern era was Monsters Incorporated. This movie is about a world filled with monsters, where they have to scare children in order to get energy. They do this by using portals to the human world through closets. Now, this confused me a bit because I know no one who has a closet like this, and they make it out as if every child in the world has one. Without thinking about it too hard, it's a great plot that gets even better when you realize the monsters are afraid to death by the children. They think they will die if they touch them, and that makes this one of the most hilarious Pixar movies ever. Also, the chameleon is awesome. Finding Nemo. This was a big one. For a while, this movie was the highest grossing Pixar movie. Too bad they couldn't make any sequel because they put the objective in the title. Finding Nemo. I can't imagine what they would call the next one. Finding Nemo 2? Would I have to find him again? Anyways, the movie is about a fish that loses his child and he has to find him, hence the title. Honestly, I do find this movie to be a little bit overrated. I'm just not that big fan of this movie as everyone else is. It might have something to do with the fact that I hate water. I'm afraid of anything underneath it. I liked the movie and thought it was great, but not as much as everyone made it out to be. Next up, The Incredibles. Now this movie really lived up to its name. When it came out, I absolutely loved it. While everyone else weren't that into it, it was like a complete reversal of Nemo. This time, it was I who really enjoyed the film and not everyone else. This movie is about a family of superheroes, all with their own abilities, and the parents retired their superhero work years ago. So now they have a boring, normal job like everyone else. At first, it might seem like a generic action flick, but you'll soon realize that it has a deep story that no other superhero movie I can think of provides. The story steals the show, but also the action is great, and seeing all these powers in use like freezing things to ice, running really fast, turning invisible and so on, it's really cool and taken greatly to use. With Cars, I feel they went into a new era again. Ever since this movie came out, they have managed to keep up with releasing a new movie every year. Now, Cars takes place in a world where everyone is a car. Now, I know Pixar is known for making alternative reality movies, but this went too far. I mean, I have too many questions to even start. How do they build things? How do they reproduce? How do they even talk? Do you really want me to explain the plot? Okay, so there's this race car named Lightning McQueen, who is on its way to a cup but gets lost on the way, and he makes it to a small town filled with idiotic cars. Most notable is Mater. First, McQueen is selfish and hates everyone, but he gradually starts appreciating them and the small town. This is what we call a character with multiple dimensions, a character that evolves over time and has multiple personalities. This is something Pixar is really good at. Overall, Cars is a good movie, but not their best. I feel it was made for a bit younger audience. When Ratatouille came out, I didn't really care for it and I didn't go see it, but when it came out on DVD, I gave it a watch, and it surprised me. The simplest plot explanation I can give is that it's about a rat that makes food on a restaurant. So again, it's one of those movies where it's from the perspective of the small creatures, but it also focuses on the humans. The rat has to cooperate with the human on the restaurant, and the rat literally remote controls the human. It makes for some really funny and tense moments. As well as that, this movie has a great atmosphere and great character development. This is a movie that served me far more than expected. No pun intended. Actually, it was intended. Now, with WALL-E, shit just got real. This was my big turning point. This was when I realized that Pixar is the best movie studio in the world. WALL-E is so freaking good, it made every other children's movie look like a children's movie. The plot is impossible to explain in such a short time. The movie takes place in the future, where trash has taken over the planet, and the humans live on a space station, like the American faggots they are. Nah, just kidding. The whole movie follows a little robot on Earth that is programmed to clean up. Eventually he gets sent to a space station and gets to meet fellow robots. This opens for some really goofy moments with these robots. While this is one of the funniest and goofiest Pixar movies, it's also one of the darkest and most serious ones. The movie can also resemble a space odyssey, but in a good way. Everything about this movie is perfect. The story, the characters, the atmosphere, it really felt like I was leaving planet Earth. I guess you can say it's out of this world. The following year, I was anticipating to see what they could offer with their next big title, Up. This couldn't possibly be as good as WALL-E, and it wasn't. It was even better. I once again left the cinemas thinking, I have just seen the best movie ever. Again. The plot is complicated. It's about a man who has promised his entire life that he will one day take his wife to a special waterfall in South America. He never gets around to it, and when his wife dies, he takes the whole house with him like an airship. The first 20 minutes of the movie explains things way better than I ever could. He flies to South America in a house attached to a few thousand balloons. When he wants to go up, he throws out some furniture, and when he wants to go down, he cuts off a few balloons. The rules are simple, and all the things that happen on the way get out of control. The best parts of the film are the emotions you will go through with the protagonist. You feel bad for him, and even when things turn out well, you still feel bad for him. He just accepts all of his losses. Still, to this day, I think this is the best movie ever made. Whenever someone asks me what my favorite movie is, I always refer to Up. But the awesomeness didn't stop there. The next year came Toy Story 3. First sequel in a long time. I thought it couldn't be that good because sequels usually aren't that great, especially not the third one. I was still looking forward to it considering it had been 11 long years since the last one. Not only did this movie live up to my expectation, but it far exceeded my expectations. I can honestly say that this movie was even better than the first two, and that says a lot. This movie takes place supposedly 11 years after the last movie, so the whole plot is in real time to how long we have waited. Kinda like what they did with Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Andy has now grown up, is going to college and doesn't play with his toys anymore. So by accident, the toys get sent to the kindergarten, but they are being tortured there, so they have to escape. The theme of the movie is that the toys really want to be played with. It's the reason for living. This theme was shown really well in the first movie, where Woody got jealous for not being played with, It didn't show up much in the second film, but in this one it shows up really well. The story is unpredictable and constantly throws new plot twists at you. One moment you think they're gonna die, and then they will live, and then they will die, and then live again. It's very not straightforward and a fantastic conclusion to the Toy Story trilogy. Until they make a fourth one. Last year we got Cars 2. I did not bother seeing it in cinema, but I gave it a watch on DVD. Was it better or worse than the first movie? Well, I think it was a little bit worse, because the character development here was much weaker. This one was just a big slapstick-a-thon. The characters are fun to be with, and that's what makes this one fun. The whole plot with the agency and exploding fuel was kind of boring and complicated, but the ending was a little bit creative. This movie has been ripped apart by critics. Now, while I do find it to be one of the inferior Pixar movies, it wasn't that bad. This year, it's Brave that's playing in cinemas worldwide. You may have seen it, but I haven't. Well, that's all depending on when you're watching this video. And if you've seen it, please don't put any spoilers in the comment section. Moving on, according to a few sources, next year there will be a prequel to Monsters Incorporated called Monsters University. Making a prequel isn't that easy since there's only a 3 to 1 chance for it to succeed. The Star Wars prequel trilogy shows that. 2/3, 1 gem. Now try to guess which is the gem. I also hear Pixar is making a movie about dinosaurs, so that should be interesting. Anyways, I hope you understand why Pixar is my favorite movie studio ever. Their movies are simply genius. DreamWorks Animations has for the most part crap movies, some decent ones and a few good ones, but there's a difference between good and perfection. So I'm waiting for DreamWorks to reach such a level of perfection. Until then, Pixar will always be my number one.